You are listening to Fantha Tracks.
Because of the following special program, Wonder Woman and the Incredible Hulk will not be presented this evening.
Like a panther.
It's time to get all your Star Wars news in a single file.
That doesn't sound too hard.
Boom! This is Making Tracks.
This is the way.
Here are your hosts, Mark Newbold and Mark Mulcaster.
I know these people. They are brutal. Does this look Jedi to you?
That's not how the Force works.
They'll never see it coming.
Count
You're listening to Making Tracks, and a very special episode as we head back for the first time to Galaxypalooza, which took place in Rayleigh in Essex on the 6th of June 2026. I had the good fortune to sit down with David Whiteley. David is a well-known Star Wars documentarian focusing on the UK experience. So let's listen to the first part of my chat with David on stage at Galaxypalooza.
Right, everyone, welcome back to Galaxypalooza, back on the talk stage. Hope everybody's okay. There's a nice little crowd here. I'm here with David. We are going to talk about Star Wars, I think.
Well, Star Wars would be a good start, hopefully.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm going to start with a really obvious, basic, simple question. When did you first see Star Wars? What was the thing that grabbed you at the beginning?
Oh, my word. Well, good morning, everyone. I feel it's wonderful to be back in my home area. I live in Norfolk. It's a long way to come from Norfolk down here. I grew up in this part of the world. I was born in Rochford, and you won't believe that the day I was born was May the 4th, 1977. People have actually said that to me. There's no way you could have been born on May the 4th. You must have skewed that so you can make your documentaries. It is actually true. And the first Star Wars I saw in the cinema was Return of the Jedi, 1983, in Southend, with my dad. So that was my kind of. I kind of seen the others on VHS by then, and then that was it. And then the love started, and then for years I was just a fan, like all of us, just a fan.
So you were 6, so it grabbed you at just the right time. What was it? I mean, it's Star Wars. What wouldn't grab you? But what do you think? What it was that made you sort of hooked in?
I mean, I suppose at that point there was nothing else, was there? It was we had Star Wars, we had the A-Team, you had a bit of Star Trek and all these other kind of things. But something about Star Wars just really stuck with me, and it was my dad really got me into it. He was really keen on it as well, and that was how I kind of got into it as well. And then that was it. I mean, I was then became a lifelong fan.
You've got a very tangible, real connection now to Star Wars through the books you've done, through the documentaries. Where did that begin?
So I worked in local radio around here. I worked at, do you remember Essex FM? Is it you guys all from around here? So I worked in Southend. Yes, Essex FM. Thank you, Stu. And I was always desperate to kind of get anything I could that was Star Wars on the radio. And I remember interviewing Peter Mayhew and Kenny Baker in a time when there was a convention, and it was that kind of those lost years where Star Wars was for the diehards still, and everyone else, the rest of the world, felt like they'd forgotten it, but we hadn't. And I was desperate to kind of get it on the radio as much as possible, which I did. And then I moved into documentaries, and I was doing documentaries for many years as a presenter and a producer at the BBC. And then I'd been filming a very boring thing in London. I was heading back to Norwich, and then I read that Mark Hamill was doing an interview at I think it was Cambridge. It was Cambridge University or something.
Right,
yeah, he was doing something.
Oxford Union.
It was like one of these things, and I thought, hang on, wouldn't it be great to get him? Everyone thinks that. Let's get Mark Hamill. So I contacted the student union, and they said, yeah, we'll get you in touch. And his wife said yes, and I thought, great, we're in. And he was really up for it. And then production came along, Lucas, and they said no. And they said no, and I thought, okay, well,
Can we put boo for Lucasfilm? Boo.
Yeah, what have Lucasfilm ever done for us?
Exactly.
So I thought, well, do you know what? I'm going to go back to the drawing board, and And I remember watching that fantastic documentary, Empire of Dreams, which is 2 hours long. And there are two guys in it who stood out for me, and I didn't really know who they were. And that was Robert Watts and Norman Reynolds. And Robert Watts was the production supervisor on Star Wars, went on to produce Indiana Jones as well. And Norman Reynolds, who was the production designer. And they're in it for about, I think we said this earlier, 45 seconds each. Yeah. And I thought, well, they've got a story to tell. And I think that's the thing about, when you're a journalist and a filmmaker, you've got to be a bit nosy. You've got to peel back the layers, haven't you, and see what's what. And I kind of became a bit fascinated by these two chaps. And Robert with his very British accent, oh, we had real problems and this and that. And you think, well, I want to know what the problems were. So years down the line, I then thought, well, actually, maybe we should try and do this. And the name kind of popped in my head, and I just instantly thought of the title, the Galaxy Britain Built, because you had the Galaxy America built, the Galaxy Britain Built. And then I started trying to find these people, and I said to my boss at the time, I'd like to make a Star Wars documentary. And I thought, as the words came out of my mouth, I thought, this is going to be fun. But it was actually a bit of a nightmare, because you're then trying to find people it's a bit like, I likened it to when, in the early part of my career, I was interviewing Spitfire pilots who were kind of dying off. Obviously, it's the anniversary of D-Day today, and you've got all these very few veterans left, and it was a bit like trying to find these filmmaker veterans who actually are in their twilight years. And somehow I managed to find them, and it took a long time to get them, but we did.
When you're putting together something that's UK focused, British focused, what would you say the big difference is? Because people instantly, general public people would say, Star Wars, it's an American thing. And then when you actually drill into it, most of the nuts and bolts, 2/3 of the cast, it's British. It's made in Britain, it's promoted by America, it's written in America, but it's pretty much crafted here. How do you sort of delineate the difference between the British Star Wars experience and the rest of the world, let's say?
I think we had to we had to be very respectful, of course, of the American side of it. It's obviously George Lucas is American, and Gary Kurtz and the special effects. Those guys did an amazing job. But actually, I just wanted to focus it on, because we'd all heard the stories, didn't we, over the years, that Gil Taylor wasn't very happy with things and the crew were grumbling. But that wasn't my experience when I interviewed these guys. They seemed to have a real affection for it. They didn't understand it. Didn't know what the hell was going on. Who would? But they kind of felt that they had this kind of determination to get it done, and I think that was that kind of make, do, and mend. They had no money. Roger Christian and I remained friends, and I know they had absolutely nothing to make the sets, nothing to make anything really, and I think that's why we love the aesthetic of Star Wars now. We don't know why it works, it just does, and that's what they did at the time.
If I remember Gil, I interviewed Gil 20 odd years ago, obviously before he passed away. Wasn't such a good interview guest after. And if to my recollection, didn't he sit in the back of bomber planes and film over the landing sites and sort of do that sort of photography during the war? So my question is, it just always feels from the British chippy side, the worker side, the graft side, there's a little bit of that bulldog spirit in it. You mentioned Roger Christian grabbing little odds and sods to pull things together. That's part of the magic of Star Wars, isn't it?
Totally. I mean, they flew around the country, going to different airfields to pick up literally airplane scrap. They bring it all back to Elstree, and they would literally pull it all apart. And then think, well, that was quite interesting, we'll use that, and anything that was just a bit of old toot ended up being the back of the Cantina bar or the interior of the Millennium Falcon. So it was anything they could get their hands on, really, that looked interesting. And it was John Barry, who was the production designer on Star Wars, who passed away during Empire, and we found this wonderful archive interview that's in the documentary, where he's talking about finding anything that was interesting because it's been engineered anyway. So if you've got something that's engineered anyway, it looks interesting, a lot of work's gone into it, and it looks like it fits within the galaxy.
Yeah. And so many of those greebly bits, that was the word that came up, wasn't it, greebly? So many of those little bits that came up are now sort of being cherry-picked for current things that might have been, I don't know, a little screw or valve in the back of a Spitfire or whatever back in the day. When you started working into the documentary, then you start constructing it, building it, and you're chatting to these guys, what sort of crazy stories came out that you were completely unaware of?
Well, I think that was it. I mean, I'd always been quite disciplined as a filmmaker because you're under time constraints, and I was making documentaries for about 20 years, and I would think, right, I don't need any more than this. That's enough, and you would stop yourself and know that you don't want to spend hours in the edit suite trying to get all the bits together, all the bits of interview. I think I let Roger Christian's interview run 3.5 hours,
He can talk though.
He can. But I sat there and I was just, and we had a 2-camera shot, so my face is just like this the whole time because he's telling me this stuff that I'd never heard before. How they made. How they made Chewbacca's, bowcaster and how they made all the weapons and everything. And it just, I know that we all know these stories now, but at the time you didn't know. And like the one that got me was Peter Beale, who no one had really spoken to, the 20th Century Fox exec in charge of things in England for Alan Ladd Jr. And he had a real problem with equity kind of getting it signed off because there wasn't much work for British actors. So he swapped the cast list round and he put Peter Cushing and Dave Prowse and Alec Guinness at the top. And he put Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher at the bottom. And he said, look, these are the small parts down here. The director and the producer want these American guys to do the small parts. But look at these wonderful parts of the British bit. And that's how they signed it off. Because, and he did say to me, he had that somewhere, but I never saw it, sadly. That was one of those things we never saw.
That's kind of beautiful. I'm just curious, you say you'd done documentaries for 20 years before that. This might sound like a weird question, but did it help you that you were an experienced documentarian? Or do you think it might have just helped being just a Star Wars guy, if that makes any sense?
No. I think the problem was I never like to be organic with filming because I think that you have to. Some things are organic, but actually, kind of having a bit of a plan, a storyboard, really helps. So, if any of you guys made stuff before, little films and stuff, you kind of plan things a bit, and we planned it in a way that it was everyone telling their story individually as a chapter. So we'd have Les Dilly or whoever it was, one of the people in it, Gary Kurtz telling that. But we got home from filming it, and I said to the director, who's a great friend of mine, in fact, it was me and him to put it together, and we sat in my garden and he said, we should do this chronologically and tell the story as it goes. And I went, oh God, really? Because I had this idea that kind of make it but actually it's a much better way of telling the story because you want to go from, how did they get the people together? The idea comes from George Lucas. He writes everything. How do they then go about assembling the right people? How do they go and get, Robert Watts? And he was recommended by Stanley Kubrick because he'd worked on 2001. Yeah. So Kubrick had said to Gary Kurtz, you need to get Robert Watts. And all the production designers and the art directors were working on a film called Lucky Lady with Gene Hackman, Liza Minnelli and Burt Reynolds in New Mexico. And they were the team that they got together to work on Star Wars. So, see, we wanted to sort of go back to tell the story from beyond where they were before they started filming. And as we know, they then went to Tunisia and then went to the studio. But it was all those little stories, like the fact they got, Robert Watts went to Pinewood and they wanted to rent the entire studio and they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't rent the entire studio to him. So he went to Elstree, who were on their uppers a bit, and they gave him the whole lot for £75,000. And he, all the workshops, all the stages, and had it all in one place. So it was all that kind of how they got to that point as well, and all the. I wanted to kind of really show everyone knows that George had a terrible time getting it commissioned and getting it off the ground and having problems with it, and he was ill during it. But no one really knew about the people around him that kind of did all that.
Just as you say all of that, it makes you realise, and we say it a lot when we talk on Fantha and the pods and stuff, a lot of the things that make Star Wars came about almost, not by accident, that's not quite the right phrase, but there's a lot of serendipity in Star Wars, and you must have seen a lot of that. Just mentioning Robert getting Elstree for $75,000 is ridiculous. So many little things, quirks of fate that made that film come together. You must have come across a lot of that.
It was. You're absolutely right, Mark. It was twists of fate. Really, it was the fact they didn't have the money, and then they were almost shut down towards the end. And then then Robert and Gary, they directed other units just to finish it because that was the only way they could get it done. And when you hear about all that, you think, oh my word, it just sounds terrifying that they were under that pressure. And because the studio, Robert and I became very good friends, and he passed away a couple of years ago. We missed him terribly, but he would say a lot to me about the fact that 20th Century Fox didn't believe in it. They didn't want to know. They thought, what on earth we got ourselves into? But they kept pushing it to make sure it was completed.
Hello, I'm Ahmed Best, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
Also at the show was author Chris Kempshall. Chris released back in 2024 Star Wars The Rise and Fall of the Galactic Empire, and later this year releases Star Wars Star Pilots. He also co-authored 2021 Star Wars Battles That Changed the Galaxy, and was a contributor to Star Wars Insider. I caught it with Chris at his table at Galaxypalooza.
We're here at Galaxypalooza. I'm here with Chris. How are you? How's the day going for you so far?
I'm good. It's been a lot of fun. There's been some people who've come to get copies of Rise and Fall of the Galactic Empire signed, which is just, I mean, it's always nice when people turn up with copies of your book.
Absolutely.
It's been very chilled out, which is nice. Did a panel earlier with Sam Thomas from University of Durham. We were talking about Rise and Fall, and we were talking a little bit about Star Wars Star Pilots.
Yeah.
Which is fun, and we revealed that because Star Wars Star Pilots is this kind of collection of oral testimony, we revealed one of the pilots that's in the book.
Oh, nice.
And it's Hera Syndulla. Hera Syndulla is one of the people in the book, which is very, very cool and very exciting. And then I've just been kind of wandering around. I bought a large Star Destroyer.
Now, we saw each other earlier, and you said, I've seen a Star Destroyer.
Yeah. And within no more than 2 minutes later, I went and bought a large Star Destroyer.
You were totally dressed for the part, though. Totally dressed for the part.
It's very on brand.
This is a very chilled out, relaxed show.
Yes.
And not every show has this vibe. It's a treat, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and even, Star Wars celebrations are a ton of fun, and there's loads going on, and it's great to see everybody. They can be hectic and exhausting.
Yeah.
And this has just been very pleasantly chilled out. I mean, it kind of helps that I have a table that I can just kind of sit at.
That's true.
With Star Wars Celebration and other conventions, when you're kind of wandering around, roaming the floor, there's a lot of people and the like, and that can get tiring. But this is the best case scenario because they just kind of come to me if they want to, if they want a signature or they want to chat.
That's
I just have to sit here.
Yeah. Quick question. We will talk more when your next book comes out, of course. But Rise and Fall. Big hit. People talking about it all the time, still talking about it. When did it come out? A couple of years ago? About 18 months ago?
It came out on the 4th of July 2024
there
in
you
the UK.
Go. So nearly 2 years ago.
Nearly 2 years ago.
The reception to that, it must have pleased you immensely.
Yeah, it's been great. There was a lot of feeling behind from me and David Fentiman at DK and the like. We really truly believed that there was a market for this type of thing, that people would get super into it. But you don't know if that's true or not until you release the book.
Yes.
And then there were so many people who were so excited about it and who were so kind of happy and pleased about it. It was, incredibly pleasing and affirming. But I think the kind of the way that you show it, I'm still doing with fairly regular Star Wars podcasts about Rise and Fall.
Yeah.
And the book's been out for 2 years. I don't do that with my history books when they come out. I'm not still talking about the same First World War book 2 years after it's released.
That's, I guess. But it must be wonderful to be able to sort of equate real-world history with Star Wars history, make the parallels, make people understand maybe what's going on in the real world or happened in the real world through the framework of Star Wars sometimes.
I mean, what I tried to do with Rise and Fall is rather than kind of cherry-picking particular historical events or even, particular history books, because, I'm an academic historian. The books that I think of, nobody else, no actual human beings have heard of them, is instead to give the reader a feeling about what it means to be a historian, to do these things.
Yeah.
So there's an element of it's a love letter to the field of history, effectively. But what I want is for people to kind of get a sense of what does it feel like to go into an archive and read a bunch of documents? What does it feel like to look at these enormous, great big events and then have to try and figure them out in your head and process them and explain them to somebody else?
Yeah.
Because most people haven't wasted their lives sitting in an archive reading a bunch of material without getting any daylight or anything like that. It's an opportunity for them to get a sense of it.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. And I suppose within Star Wars, the Star Wars world, there's so much propaganda which we see in Andor.
Yep.
So many, the history's written by the victors kind of logic.
And also, I mean, one of the things that when I was talking about with the panel earlier and that you get in Rise and Fall is that Beaumont Kin, who's the in-universe author for it, spends a lot of time kind of pointing out that in universe, a lot of time and effort has been spent on talking and explaining about why the Rebel Alliance won the Galactic Civil War. Yeah. And not the same amount of time has been spent figuring out why did the Empire lose the Galactic Civil War.
That's a great question, yeah.
And actually, you can't understand anything if you don't understand enough about the Empire, how it functioned, how it ruled, its kind of internal processes and weaknesses, to then explain, well, actually, this is why the Empire loses the Galactic Civil War. It's not just that the Rebel Alliance are brilliant. It's actually there are serious issues within the Empire that makes them unsuited to fighting the war that they found themselves in.
That's a lovely framework of looking at it. It feels like a bigger version of leaving the small exhaust port right below the main port kind of logic, isn't it?
Yeah. There are reasons why the Empire does the things that it does. And, the reason why it doesn't make sense to the Empire, but that isn't to say that it's not incredibly flawed logic and massively disruptive and destructive to the Empire. And that's what the book is kind of at various lengths trying to explain, that the Empire is a process of all the things it does to be an empire. And that's both the beginning and the end of kind of the rise and the fall of it, that, you know, the Empire is not a functional state. And we see it in things like Andor. Nothing there is working as it should be.
No. Is it a topic that you feel that you could return to in time?
What, to returning to writing about the Empire?
Yeah.
I mean, possibly so. I mean, there's, with star pilots, again, once the time comes, but there are a lot of kind of fighter pilots in that, some from the Rebel Alliance and some from the Empire.
Yeah.
So we'll get their view of what it meant to fight in a galactic civil war, either against the Empire or for the Empire. What did it actually look like on the inside? Yeah. But I can't, you know, I'm never going to need an awful lot of convincing to return to writing Star Wars stuff. So I think once, with Star Pilots imminently going to print, I imagine there'll be a deep cleansing breath of relief, and then at some point, I would imagine, hopefully, we'll start talking about maybe doing some more. But that'll partly depend on, you know, how well Star Pilots does, and, you know, if people are listening to this and they want to go away and pre-order like 8 or 10 copies, that'd be great, each. But yeah,
perfect stocking stuffer.
Yeah,
isn't
just
it?
You know, fill your bookshelves with them. But hopefully there's like an appetite for this type of thing. Star Pilots is a different book to Rise and Fall, but I'm hoping that if people like Rise and Fall, they'll get a real kick out of Star Pilots.
People are excited about it, I can promise you that.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for, and I'm hoping that, because at the moment their excitement exists kind of purely based on their imagination. It's completely untouched with any form of the reality of the book. So I'm hoping that their excitement is sated by what they find in the book, or they get, you know, massively pleasantly surprised by what they find in the book.
I am 100% sure they will. We'll talk again later in the year when the book's out. Thank you so much. Enjoy playing with your Star Destroyer.
What's that, sorry?
Enjoy playing with your Star Destroyer.
Oh, God, I've got to drive home later, but I'm going to put it on the passenger seat.
Brilliant.
Cheers, Mark.
Thank you.
For everything in one location, daily news, reviews, interviews, podcasts, video and social media feeds, bookmark FanthaTracks.com for Star Wars news 24/7, 365.
Finally, for this episode, I had the chance to chat with my old buddy from Jedi News, James Burns. We spoke about James's panel earlier in the day with Graham Hancock and a few other things as well.
Okay, so we're sitting in the green room at Galaxypalooza, the very first Galaxypalooza. Yes. I'm here with James Burns from Jedi News. Hello, James. How's the day been for you? I found it fantastic. How have you found it?
It's been absolutely awesome. I think the guys have done a fantastic job. Their first ever convention, and they've pulled it out of the bag.
It's a great way of putting it, because we talk a lot, and it's a risk. You're putting your neck on the line for
Absolutely.
a show like this.
Yes.
And for it to come off to we're in the green room, and there's food and there's drinks, and you don't always get that. No. And there's a green room, and you don't always get that.
No, not at all. Not at all. But they've done a fantastic job, and they both Luke and Matt just need to be commended incredibly
and supported.
Yes. Yeah. And look, as a community, I think one of the great things about Star Wars community and about everybody in the UK, there isn't many of us, but we all support each other and we're all there for each other. And I think testament to them that they wanted us all involved in the show.
That's true.
They could have said, right, no, we're doing all the panels, we're going to do all the interviews, we're going to do everything. Yeah. But they didn't want to do that. They wanted all of us to be part of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's how it should be, because we are a small community.
Yeah, that's true. You opened proceedings today with Graham, talking about Lego and Blocks magazine and all the other stuff. The Lego world.
Yes.
Interesting place to be right now, isn't it?
It is. It's weird because I've become, over the last 15 years, like so immersed in the Lego world to the point where, you know, we're recognised Lego fan media, and I'm backwards and forwards to Billund, you know, 3-4 times a year, and doing more and more with them. And I don't think people realise that. I think there was a statistic, you know, 7-8 years ago, that of the percentage of Star Wars products being sold around the world, like 60% of them were Lego related.
That's insane, isn't it?
Which is absolutely mental. But when you consider the games and the merch, and then the sets themselves and everything else, it's just incredible.
Yeah. Now they've added the smart brick, and there's new expressions, and there's all the other bits and bobs that they're doing. As somebody who's sort of in the Lego fan media and involved,
Do you think the sky's the limit? Do you think they have to be cautious how far they spread the net? I know that's something Hasbro have done by keep adding expressions and losing the focus. Do you think Lego could do that, or do you think they know where they're taking this?
Well, I think they've learned the lessons from the late 1990s, early 2000s when they got to a point where things weren't looking very good.
Yeah.
They were almost at the point of bankruptcy. Star Wars saved their skin.
Seems insane, doesn't it?
Which does seem absolutely crazy. And, here we are, 25 years on, the biggest toy company in the world.
Yeah.
This year alone, close to 1,000 different sets being released across all of their different themes.
That's bonkers.
It's crazy. If you look at, Lego flowers, if you said, 5-6 years ago, we're going to create flowers out of a Lego brick, everyone would have gone, yeah, right, okay. And now, I don't know, pretty much every house I go into has got at least one Lego flower set because people are buying because they last, they don't die, they don't need water, they just need an occasional
dusting. Yeah,
but I mean it's crazy.
Yeah,
Lego is everywhere. This week we had the launch of Lego Pokemon, the Smart Play sets that they put us up in a really nice hotel in Hoxton,
right,
in Shoreditch, and we had a 2-day event that. It was hosted at South by Southwest. There was a keynote by Lego for these sets talking about marketing and Lego Formula One and all the other things that they've done. So, I mean, it just goes from strength to strength. They don't rest on their laurels.
Which is good.
But I don't think they can ever let themselves get into a point where it was... 26, 27 years ago where things were looking really, really gloomy for the company.
It's crazy to think the way you frame that Star Wars saved Lego in the same way that Star Wars saved Marvel. When you think back in the day, I mean, you'd had you got the implosion, the DC stuff going on, and Marvel were really in a mess. Marvel UK was pretty much keeping them afloat, and then Star Wars comes along and saves Marvel. So what a powerful thing to think. General Star Wars now. Obviously, we saw each other at the Mando and Grogu fan event and at the press screening and such, and the film's been out for a couple of weeks now. Where do you think we sit with it as a fandom? I know I saw it once and enjoyed it. I saw it again, I enjoyed it more. I've seen it 3 or 4 times and enjoyed it more each time. But box office hasn't set the world on fire.
I think it's going to be really telling to see what the box office does this weekend.
Yes.
Obviously, last week it was 69-70% drop, which is huge.
Which is hefty,
if it gets that sort of drop this week, it's not going to get to 350.
No, global.
Which is not good.
No.
I predicted it will get 450, 500. I think
pretty much what me and Mark said. Yeah,
I think that's what we talked about. But I think it all depends what happens this week.
Yeah,
I'm amazed that Lucasfilm Disney have stepped back and pulled it from IMAX theatres to make way for Master of the Universe, which is crazy.
Yeah,
because they don't normally do things like that.
No, they don't.
So they obviously realise that it isn't performing as well as it should or could. Look, it's a very safe film. It ticks a box. It is a popcorn movie.
Yep.
But it doesn't have the rewatchability factor that Star Wars films have, where you would go again and again and again and again. And I think that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
Which is a real shame.
Yeah.
I think the premise is good. The characters are good. It's a good film. The soundtrack is awesome.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
There's just something. There's not that huge spark that brings us back again and again.
Yeah.
I've seen it 4 times at cinema. Probably won't go and see it again at cinema.
Yeah.
Probably wait now for Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Although it's really frustrating because there was this company in the States, Jon Favreau's done a commentary for the film.
Yes, theatre is.
Yeah, but that's only available in the US.
Yeah.
If that was available here, I'd be going back to see it again.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear the commentary.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure we'll hear it on Disney Plus. But it's frustrating that we can't get that here.
Yeah.
Because I would have gone against...
I think it's US, Canada, Costa Rica, I think.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. It's North America.
So beyond Mando and Grogu, and isn't it strange that we've been mates for long enough, 20 years?
Yep.
That we come from a time where you get a Star Wars film every 3 years.
Yep.
And then the Clone Wars comes out and you're lucky you're getting Star Wars television for 20 weeks. And now we're in a world where a Star Wars film came out 2 weeks ago and we're already thinking, what's next?
Yeah.
Even we've been rewired.
It's true. Everything happens so quickly.
Yeah.
I think it's also quite telling that there isn't another Star Wars film or production that we know of that is planned yet. I think that's a good thing in some respects because maybe everyone can take a step back, take stock as where we are. Obviously, we've got a new head of Lucasfilm as well.
Yeah.
So maybe he'll take a step back and think about what is next. I hope that they've learned the lesson from the last 10 years or so where they don't announce a Star Wars project until they've got a final script.
Wasn't it refreshing to hear the talk today about Tony Gilroy and saying, I forget who said it, forgive me, but basically Tony doesn't turn the camera over until that script is exactly where he wants it.
And that's the way it should be, but they shouldn't be announcing projects until that's in place.
Yeah.
So I hope we move away from that.
Yeah.
There's still so many projects in the ether that we don't know whether they'll ever come to fruition. I'm thinking Lando, Droids, the Rey film, the Rian Johnson trilogy, all of these films that have all been announced.
Yeah.
But
isn't it strange?
The probabilities of them actually seeing the light of day?
Exactly. The different world we're in now where you kind of think that the stockholders need to be excited because you need to get everybody's, because we're in that different, the realms of what Lucasfilm is compared to what it was is obviously very different. It's part of a bigger sort of a bigger whole.
Yeah.
And yet we as fans hear the word Rangers of the New Republic, and we're all like, oh God, just imagine Cobb Vanth and
just
blah, blah,
imagine,
blah.
Cara June.
Yeah.
Is she back in favour? Is Gina Carano back in Star Wars?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a question I'd like to put to Dave and others.
Yeah.
We know they've had a telephone conversation.
Yeah.
But how far did that go?
Yeah.
I was sort of half expecting a cameo in Mandalorian and Grogu.
Say, we said that. We would not have been at all surprised.
I wouldn't have been surprised. But there was nothing. Or would that be back on?
Yeah.
Could that series see the light of day now?
And now I suppose Mando and Grogu being out and you've got Rotter in there.
Yes.
And now he feels like a character in that world.
Yeah.
Zeb's like, I've got a jacket that'll fit. Come with me,
Yeah, I mean, Zeb's going nowhere. I'm sure Zeb's definitely there to stay.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see whether, bringing a character like that into a TV show would need a decent amount of money behind it to make that happen. So it'd be interesting to see.
It'd be interesting, yeah.
And
true.
Zeb as well.
But going forward, that Mando and Grogu as a film is very much a creature feature, isn't it?
Yep.
It's very heavy on the puppetry, the animatronics, ILM, and plenty of external vendors, not just ILM anymore. Yep. So, you're not paying actors monster.
True.
True. You're not paying Pedro the same money if he was in that film all the way through.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. Although they're paying 3 actors for 1 role.
True.
So I don't know how that equates, but look, I love Grogu, I love the Anzellans, and there's so much footage that was shot that we haven't seen.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that either it gets Disney Plus or a Blu-ray release or something.
Yeah.
Because there's all the interiors on the Anzellan ship. There's Hoth stuff that we haven't seen yet with the gun turret and stuff, which we know was all shot.
Yeah.
So I'm really hopeful we see some of that stuff.
Hi there, this is Mike Quinn. I played Nine Num in Return of the Jedi and the new trilogy, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
And the rest of 2026, heading into 27, the 50th anniversary year, how do you feel? And I'm talking in the broadest sense now. The fandom is teeing up for that.
Yep.
But the rest of the world will, if they don't already know, will know fairly heavily. Oh, wow, Star Wars came out 50 years ago. Where do you think it's going to go?
I think it will explode for a period of time.
Yeah.
In a positive way. I think having A New Hope back in cinema, they still haven't confirmed exactly what version we're going to see, but I think we're fairly confident it's going to be the original theatrical release, albeit in 4K.
Yeah.
Then that leads us directly into Starfighter. We're going to start the year off with Ahsoka Season 2, going straight into all of that. It's going to be a busy 5-6 months.
Yeah.
And then obviously we've got Celebration as well.
Yes.
And everything around. So I think Star Wars is going to explode. I think the 50th anniversary is going to be a stepping off point for a lot of people, especially some collectors.
Yeah.
I can see them saying, I've got 50 years worth of product.
Yeah.
I'm drawing a line.
I'm good with that.
Which is fair. There isn't really another fandom that's gone on for 50 years. That has...
We say, I talk about Trek, 'cause obviously I did a bit with Trek, and that's such an up and down kind of thing. It goes to ground at times, it goes away for a bit and then comes back. It's one of those kind of shows. So Star Wars is a consistent thing going all the way through. So it's, like I say, it's a different kind of thing.
It is different. And, in terms of merch and in terms of always being there and shows and music and games.
And this.
And all the conventions around the world.
Yeah.
So... I think that's a positive thing that both Lucasfilm and now Disney have done to obviously keep it at the forefront of people's minds, which is which is great for all of us.
It is. And final thing, James, Jedi News is 20 years old next year.
It is. That's scary, isn't it? How did that happen? Yeah, 20 years old. I mean, I've been in fandom since '99.
Yeah.
With the Private Universe back in those days.
I remember
Scary. Yeah, it's mad. Absolutely mad. Who would have thought that here we are doing all of this, and
still.
It's just
a few more grey hairs.
A few more grey, but like talking to Graham this morning.
Yes.
Graham was part of Jedi News from the beginning in 2007 and wrote for the site for 4 or 5 years, doing almost 500 articles.
Yeah.
And like all these people have touched it, all these people have been involved.
Yeah.
And it's grown, it's grown all organically. And it's just great to be, to be a very small part of fandom.
You need another cake, James. Do you remember at Fan Fun Day?
Well, we've done a few cakes.
You did one at Collectomania as well.
I remember Anthony Daniels has cut a cake for us. Jeremy's cut a cake for us. Kenny as well. So we've had quite a few stars cutting cakes for us. Where are we going to be on May the 4th next year?
That's
Who knows?
a great question.
Burnley?
I don't know. Maybe
Burnley.
Or Blackburn.
Blackburn. Yeah.
Same. I still say Burnley.
Yeah, it's mad.
Yeah.
But so maybe there.
Yeah.
Be gearing up for a premiere of Starfighter as well.
Yeah.
It's gonna be.
Next year's gonna be nuts.
Next year's gonna be absolutely crazy.
Well, thanks for joining us.
As always.
Always good to chat. We'll do it again soon.
Absolutely.
Email radio@fanthatracks.com. Head to links.fanthatracks.com for links to our social media feeds, Fantha Tracks TV and Fantha Tracks Radio. Thanks to James Semple for the Fantha Tracks intro, Blues Harvest for our Making Tracks opening music, and Mark Daniel and Vanessa Marshall for our voiceovers. New episodes drop Tuesdays and Fridays at 7 o'clock UK time. Our weekly news show, Good Morning Tatooine, goes live Sundays at 9 o'clock UK time on Facebook and YouTube. And remember, Fantha Tracks is absolutely free, so it costs nothing to stay updated on all the latest Star Wars news.
Coming up next on Fantha Tracks Radio, it's Making Tracks.